Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest today is Dreama Denver. Do you remember a wonderful little show called Gilligan's Island? I did. I loved it. Gilligan was just the heart and soul of that show. He certainly kept everybody alive on the island, and his sense of humor and timing was absolutely wonderful. Well, Dreama is the wife of Gilligan and has had a beautiful life with him. And we're going to be talking about that life, Gilligan's dreams, and we're going to be talking about their son with autism. We're going to be talking about the Denver Foundation, the nonprofit foundation started by Bob and Dreama in honor of their severe autistic son. And they're going to understand firsthand exactly what families face when they face that challenge of special needs children. We're going to be also talking about her books, Gilligan's Dreams, the memoirs, Four Bears in a Box, and a new book that is coming out it is out now, Zen and Now. We've got a lot to talk about here, so I want to dive right into it. Now, Dreama met him. Did you actually meet on Gilligan's Island? Did you meet on the show, love? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you, Sarah. We did not meet on Gilligan's Island during the original run of the series, but I was a young actress and I was cast in a stage show with Bob as his love interest. And it was really so perfect. It was funny because I was actually in Florida visiting my family, and a friend called me and said, over in St. Petersburg, they're casting for a show called Play It Again, Sam, a Woody Allen show. And I'm sure most people have heard of that one.
Yes.
He said, you would be perfect for the female lead. I really think you should go audition. So I said, okay. So I did. I went over to St. Pete and auditioned and got the part. And so after the audition, when the producer told me I had the part, I said, well, who's going to be starring in the show? And she said, Bob Denver. And I went, Gilligan? I did. And she said, yes. And I went, oh, seriously? I'm going to have to do love scenes and kiss Gilligan? And she was like, well, if you want the part, you're going to have to. And I was like, oh, no, I want the part. I want the part. So little did I know, I would never have imagined. A couple of weeks later, we started rehearsal. And I went over and there was a marquee on the outside of the theater that said Bob Denver starring in Play It Again, Sam, also starring Dreamer Perry, which was my maiden name. And so I walked into rehearsal and all of us got there before Bob did. We were all chatting and having, actor small talk, what have you been in? Who have you worked with? All those things. Suddenly a man hits the doorway and the first thing out of his mouth was, what the heck is a dreamer? And I went, that would be me. And he goes, serious, your name is Dreamer? And I said, no, it's Dreama, which he thought was every bit as weird because he had never heard it. And he came over, we took hands. He said, it's nice to meet you, Dreama. And I'm telling you, anybody who was there that day would back me up on this. It was electric. I mean, there was something that passed between us that for me, it was, and later I found out for him, it was the same thing. But for me, it was, there you are.
Right.
I've been waiting all these years and there you are, And it lasted for 30 years. So wonderful. It was the real deal.
Yeah. And it's very rare to find that real deal. And especially in the show business world as well. But for anybody, 30 years, whatever years you have of real love is hard to come by and something you really, truly hold on to, right?
That's so true. Bob used to say, I think we'd been married about 20 years when it was like an anniversary. And I was like, oh my gosh, 20 years together. Who would have imagined that? And he looked at me and he said, hey, in Hollywood years, it's more like 40.
Yes.
and it's true. It's like dog years, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
In Hollywood, making it, any length of time is pretty amazing. So yeah, and we had a lot of challenges in our marriage. A lot of things that we obviously didn't ask for it, but were presented with. And I tell you, it sounds so corny, but it really is true. It made our relationship stronger, the things we went through. And I know we're going to talk about some of those. It just, when you're with the right person.
Yes.
I can imagine other people I dated in my life, had we had those same challenges, it would never have worked. But Bob and I we just adored each other. So, we were
when it's the right person,
whatever.
yeah, you can weather any storm with the right person.
I think so. I really do.
Yeah. And that kind of really comes into the true test, of your love, of your relationship, is to not look at things that divide you, but how they unite you even more. And, I know that your son was severely autistic. And I don't know how old he is now.
Oh, this is hard for me to say because I think I'm his age.
Right.
But he's 38 years old now.
Right. So
he was almost 21 when his father passed away. So
right. Autism is a very misunderstood condition, and there are so many different spectrums of it, and there's so many different levels of it. And I would imagine 38 years ago, I've interviewed many a parent who have, were told, oh, just institutionalize your child and go and have another, right? So I'm sure you heard that.
Exactly the same thing. It was he was diagnosed at UCLA when he was 10 years old. So this would have been 1986. When he was 10 years old, 2 years old in 1986. And, the doctor, whose name I conveniently forget because it was, I write the whole thing, obviously, in Gilligan's Dreams, but basically that was his message was he's going to destroy your life. He's going to take up every ounce of energy that you have. And my recommendation is that you institutionalize him so the two of you can have a life. Well, when you're looking at your precious 2-year-old, it's just this little darling thing. And I actually remember doing this, and this, when I think back, I can't believe it, but he told us all this horrible news, how it was going to be such a bad thing for us, how our lives were going to be destroyed. And at the end of his big speech, I actually walked over to him and the doctor and looked at him and I said, I am so sorry that you have to give us this news. This must be so difficult. Something you do all the time that must be so hard to destroy parents' lives this way, And he looked at me like I'd lost my mind, quite frankly.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. You're comforting me?
Exactly. You're the one, because I was the one crying, right?
Yeah.
But Bob gave him, I can't do this verbatim. I did it for the book because I really went back to that moment and gave it a whole lot of thought. But Bob laid a speech on this doctor that was pretty phenomenal. Bob was so smart. This is what people wouldn't imagine about him because of Gilligan and Maynard and the characters he played, but he was highly intelligent, and he, in the nicest way, really let this doctor have it. He said, I can't, oh gosh, I should get it out and read it. I mean, it was just the most amazing thing, all the things he said to him, and they were spot on. And we left there knowing that there was no way we were going to institutionalize our son. And I don't mean that as a criticism to anybody who makes a different choice, because like you said, the spectrum is huge.
Yes.
People's dynamics in their lives are different. We happen to be in a situation where Bob did not work 9 to 5. I did not work 9 to 5. We were both actors. I could give it up, which I did. And Bob basically, one reason I wrote the book was I wanted people to know him as a man as opposed to Gilligan and Maynard and all the characters he played, because there was no discussion. He set aside Hollywood and looking for series work and looking for movies and all of that to be with me 24/7, 365, taking care of our son, and did that for over 20 years.
Wow.
Until he passed away. Now he did personal appearances and guest star shots on things like Alf and Baywatch and shows like that. But when it came to looking for regular work that would keep him away from Colin and me, we never even discussed it. He just didn't do it,
Right.
And we were very blessed in that regard because we didn't, had I been a 9-to-5 worker, had he been, the decision might have been not institutionalizing, I don't think ever, but it might have, had to go a different way. We were just very blessed that we were able to have the freedom to make the choice we did.
Yes, yes, definitely blessed. And the other thing about comedians, people look at comedians and think, oh, they're just a funny guy, they can never be serious. They don't realize how serious or what serious work it is to be a comedian. Right?
That's true. And I think, the really good, the Robin Williams and the Richard Pryors, and I think a lot of funny comes out of torment of some kind.
Yes.
I think you have to find humor in things to be able to survive sometimes. And so Bob was not a Richard Pryor kind of comedian or a Robin Williams, but he was a comedic actor and a physical comedy actor who could just do anything with his body, and I think that's part of what made him so good. But the other side of the island, the book's title is Gilligan's Dreams, The Other Side of the Island, because the other side of the island was the serious part of Bob. It was the devoted father, the committed husband. I mean, we were so intertwined. When he passed away, I honestly, I'm not saying this to be dramatic, I did not know if I could survive without him. We were like this, and it was scary, really scary.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine, because it was, together you were one. And it literally is having, half of you pulled apart, and then a kind of a rediscovery of who are you now without him.
You're just right on. It's really true. I remember, at some point shortly after he died, maybe within the first year, I remember standing in front of the mirror going, who am I? For a long time. Well, in my young life, I was an actress on my own. And then once Bob and I met, we did it together for years before we had a son. We didn't have we were married 6 years, I think, when we had Colin. And I had been, Bob's wife for almost 30 years, just shy of 30. I had been the mother of an autistic child for, at that point, almost 21 years. And I didn't know who I was. It's like, I remember thinking, what do I feel spiritually? Not what do we feel as a couple? What do I feel, politically? What are my goals? Mine.
Yes.
I've been taking
Who are you now? Who are you?
I really didn't know. And it was the most, remarkable journey to find myself. It was terrifying. It was overwhelming. And when I tell you, it literally sent me to my knees on many occasions. It did. But the journey was, in the end, when I saw the light and started finding myself, it was really exciting. And there's so many things about my life now that I would have missed had things not happened the way they did. And being an author,
right? Exactly.
All those things that I would have missed, that I would have been sad not to experience. So it's, it really is. It's, I believe in positivity, regardless of what the circumstances are. Hard to come by sometimes, but without that, if I did the way I wanted to just give up and roll over and play dead and say, I can't do this. That's what I wanted to do. And I probably did that the first 6 months or so, kind of in a fetal position on my sofa going, I can't function without Bob. I don't know what to do. But then as, you know, as I started coming alive and finding me, I remember one day, it was so funny. I was cleaning a table or something and I was dusting and I stood up and there was a mirror in front of me. And I remember looking in the mirror going, oh, there you are. Oh, there you are. Because you lose yourself.
Oh God, yes.
In caregiving. I mean, anybody out there who's doing any kind of caregiving, you truly do lose yourself. And
you're on the perpetual back burner.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's overwhelming, you know, in every caregiving, boy, until you've been there, it's overwhelming in every way, physically, financially, emotionally, in every way you can imagine. It is draining and depleting. And you have days when you don't want to get out of bed and think you can't possibly go on. And then other days you pull together. That was another way I was blessed. Bob and I, there were days when I would wake up and go, and he'd go, take today off. I'll handle it. And the opposite, when he couldn't, there were days he couldn't do it. And he would go, I can't deal with them today because it's very challenging. And I did, that's okay, honey, I'll do it today. You know, lots of days we could do it together. There's some days neither one of us wanted to do it.
Yes.
But it's a very depleting, exhausting, emotionally draining thing. Yeah. To have to go through that with somebody you love, you know?
Right. And, you know, let's talk about your son, Colin, with the autism, because there are so many spectrums to autism. And I've interviewed a lot of autistic people that are highly productive, and where really it's more, you know, the Asperger's, where they just don't want to mix with society. And in a lot of ways, I don't blame them. You know, it's, you know, I think they've just got it right, you know, like, why should I bother? You know, I'll choose a smaller circle. But I've always found them incredibly gifted in certain areas, you know, that focus that they have and the vision that they have, you know, to be able to direct that focus into something. What kind of autism does your son have?
It's just severe. When he was first diagnosed in 1986, autism was not a thing. It wasn't something that was talked about or even diagnosed at that time. So he was diagnosed as severely retarded, which any parent
doesn't want to hear.
In the same boat with me. We don't like that terminology because it just brings up an image that's not true. Right. I can tell that Colin is smart. Now, Colin is nonverbal to this day. I've never had a conversation with him. I don't know what he thinks. I don't know what he feels. I don't know if he has dreams. It's very, I have moments still. I've come to accept it over all these years, but there are moments still when it just breaks my heart that I've never heard, I love you, Mom. I've never heard, I hate you, Mom. Right. There was a point where I would have taken anything. Yes. You know, he could have, no matter what he said, as long as he said it. But I kind of lost my track. I got sidetracked in my head. That's okay. I remember when he was about 4 years old, we were trying to do Halloween with him. He never cared, but we were trying to do Halloween, and Bob was videoing. I had him in this little mouse, really cute little mouse costume, and I had to put on one piece at a time and walk in the room, let his dad, and then we'd go back out and put on the little, and then we'd walk back in. So finally we had the whole costume on and we walked in, and I said to Colin, as we were walking, I said, can you say, I love you, Mom? And he, you know, vocalized. And in that moment, I didn't hear it. But when we played the video back, he actually said, oh, Mom. I mean, it was the best. And that's the only thing. Oh, I'm going to get teary. Yeah. That's the only time he ever said it. And I missed it in the moment.
But thank God it was being filmed. Thank God it was being filmed. It's there, yeah.
Bob was taping it, you know, the big thing on your shoulder,
yes.
Kind of thing, you know. And but back to the original question. he was diagnosed as severely retarded. We were told to institutionalize him and all that. And then as we got, I think it was probably into the 90s when doctors started speaking of it as autism, as opposed to brain injury or any of the other terms that we had heard. So he would be on the severe, he would be on the big end of the spectrum, the tough end of the spectrum. And Bob and I, after Rain Man came out, now that's when autism got to be, I think, a lot more.
Yes, understood or even, identified in any way, right?
Exactly. So after we saw that movie, we wanted Colin to be a savant so badly.
Yes.
We bought him keyboards, thinking, oh, maybe he'll play.
Yeah.
We did all kinds of things. And that never happened for us. But he is truly the sweetest soul. I know any mother in my position would, even with his tantrums, even with the challenges, he is the purest soul I have ever known. I mean, what you see, his purity, and I know we're all born into a fallen world and all of that, but his purity is just amazing to me. There's no manipulation, no lying or cheating or trying to get around you, or he doesn't have that
exactly
capability. He just, and if he's mad, he's mad, and if he's happy, he's happy. And he did a little thing when he started when he was about 3, maybe 4. He would do this thing where he would come up to me or come up to his dad and put his forehead against ours and do this, and then open his eyes right into ours really big. And he kept doing that. And Bob looked at me and he said, we have to make that into something. That can't just be this random,
right?
Because it means something. Because he's doing it very purposefully, and so
his form of kissing, maybe.
Yeah, well, he had big blue eyes, and so we started calling that a shot of blue, and a shot of blue means I love you. So he would come up and do that, and open his eyes really big, and we would go, a shot of blue means I love you, and I love you too, buddy. And he would just grin. And to this day, 36 years later, when I go over to visit, he comes over, puts his head against mine. And if he's really loving me, I brought him a favorite meal or something. If he's really loving me, this goes on for like 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah. This part, and then finally, and don't break it in the middle of it. Don't look away. Don't talk, because then you have to start over from the very beginning, you know? So I thought I was so happy that Bob thought to turn that into something that would be a way of communication, a way for him to say, I love you. And that really is, it was almost like when Bob said that, Colin went, you got it. Okay.
Yes.
I can't say it, but you got it. Yay, Dad.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm communicating. And, I think this is kind of a metaphor for life, really, that we all communicate in different ways. I mean, we're all expecting to hear words or articulation or something, and sometimes we can't. We may have all the words, but we can't articulate it. And I think it's sometimes, if we look at each other's body action and really what we're trying to, to portray, then maybe we would listen differently. And I think that's one thing I've learned with autistic children, is they teach us to listen differently, to observe differently.
Maybe we would just listen, period.
Yes.
Don't you think that a lot of times we're hearing, but we're waiting for our turn to talk?
Right.
And we're thinking in our heads about what we're going to say when we talk next. Yeah. I feel like, having a child like Colin, again, I think there are parents who would totally agree with me. It's not rationalization, though it probably sounds that way, it just makes you look at everything differently. The miracle of the human body. Yeah. If the ingoing pathways are working, but the outgoing pathways aren't, then you're going to have this communication issue. Any of us know that have ever had, you pull the small of your back, it affects everything in your life. Just the miracle of when everything is okay. Because when Colin was born, we did what every parent does. We counted fingers and toes, and, you know, he looked fine. There was nothing wrong physically. And we just thought, you know, we've got a perfectly healthy baby. And the problems started showing up fairly early when he wasn't hitting milestones, you know, when he should. So we started recognizing that something wasn't quite right. We took him to Dr. T. Barry Brazelton. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He has written, he's gone now, but oh my gosh, to me, it was like meeting a rock star. I can't tell you this. He had the most beautiful smile. He loved children. He had a TV show at that time on Lifetime called What Every Baby Knows. He's written, if you go to the library, he's written, so many books on child development and all that. So when we were up in New England, he was in Cambridge, and we were up in New England, and I told Bob, I said, I'm going to call his office and see if we can get in to see him, because I mean, that would be like, I don't know, it was like he was going to save the day. You know, it just felt like that's what it. Called his office, a man receptionist answered, and I said who I was, and I dropped Bob's name, which I didn't often do, but I thought if that's going to get us in, I'll
do whatever's necessary.
My husband is doing a play out on Cape Cod, and he's going to be finished on so-and-so date. And we have a son with, you know, developmental issues, and we would love to be able to talk to you. And the man goes, well, Mrs. Denver, I'm a big fan of your husband, and I would be happy to work you in. And I said, well, if you would tell Dr. Brazelton how much and he said, this is Dr. Brazelton. I went, you're answering your own phone? I was blown away. And yes, he was answering his own phone. And his office was in his home. And he saw us, it was like in the basement, nice basement of his home. And we went there, and he could not have been, he was the first one to tell us, to really tell us that we needed early intervention, that there was a problem, but he didn't, not being Colin's pediatrician, he didn't want to totally, you know, capsize the boat. He wanted us to go to UCLA and have a doctor there go through the process and let us know at the end of that what had happened. But he stayed in touch with me for years. He would write me and ask how Colin was doing, and you know, that was one of the highlights of my life, was getting to meet that man. Better than Tom Selleck, I want you to know. And it was pretty exciting meeting Tom Selleck, I gotta tell you. So, you know.
We never know the people who are going to have that impact, do we? You know, those people that make a difference. And it's like, and also we've got to have gumption. You know, that I think we live too much of our life on apology. And, you know, it's people like, you need to know something. Why can't you reach out? Why can't you reach out and ask, you know, oh, but they're big and they're this, or they're a star. They're a human being with a skill, or with knowledge, or with something that inspires you. Why can't you reach out? Right. And we put these barriers in front of ourselves. And, you know, I know that with, you know, many a parent of autistic children, they've had to just delete those barriers and go, whatever, you know, I never would have done this, you know, in my other life, but in this life, this is for my child, and I am going to do whatever I need to do.
Well, any mother knows, they put that baby in your arms, and you know that you could scratch eyes out if you had to. You know, you would do anything to protect that child. I mean, that's just you know, and when I wrote Gilligan's Dreams, part of the reason was there's some kind of comfort for when you have watched a person on television your entire life. You ran home from school every day to see if they'd gotten rescued. I mean, there was a time when it was on 5 and 6 times a day. Sometimes against itself on different channels. And when you find out that that person that you admired, that you thought was funny, that you thought never had problems in his or her life, and you find out that they're going through something very similar to what you're going through, there's some kind of comfort in that. And I don't really understand what it is. I just know that when Colin was diagnosed, and I, who had a famous husband, found out that John Travolta had an autistic son. And Tony Braxton had an autistic son, and Jenny McCarthy. And, you know, that was comforting to me. It's like, oh,
because you didn't feel
it's
alone.
not just us,
Yes.
you know, and being a celebrity, being well known, having a famous face doesn't, you know, people, I would think you're protected from everything. Nothing bad is ever going to happen to you because you've got all the money in the world, not
the
true in
fame,
case
the
of Gilligan
fortune.
Island.
Yeah.
You got contacts, you know, nothing, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, like you said, that's what made this come to mind. We are, in the end, all human beings.
Yes.
And we have children. You know, some celebrities have drug addicted children, or children who, you know, we all face things. And I wanted to write the book partly because, obviously all for Bob, because I wanted people to know him, but also for people, if there was any kind of comfort in reading our story and going, I went through something exactly like that, or mine is very different, not as bad as that, or, you know,
or it could be,
that
you
would
know,
be helpful.
There's again so much misunderstanding because, you know, there's a lot of people that will take on when they have what they call a defect in a child, which is, you know, very cruel, but oh, it's my fault, or it's your fault, something to do with your genes, it's your side of the family, and you go in the blame game. And it's like, there is no blame here, you know. It just is. And there is always a reason for something. And, you know, as you say, you look at celebrities who are open about the difficulties they're facing, whether it's autistic children, drug addiction, their own addiction. I mean, look at Betty Ford, you know, she started the clinic open and clear about it. It gives people permission to be human, to have feelings, but to also to educate people on what the issue is. You know, what is autism? How come there's so many different spectrums? What are the challenges? And it also, I think, then helps other people that may know somebody. Oh, okay, all right. I know that they feel isolated and they can't talk to anyone, but now I have a better understanding. You know, I can actually say, is there any way I can help? Is there any way I can do something? And that is huge, isn't it?
That's so important. And, you know, sometimes it would be a matter of, having done it for decades, I know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
It would be a matter of maybe, let's say, coming to the house and mom doesn't even have to leave.
Right.
But you just sit somewhere near where the child is, or the child, no matter how old or young, and let mom go take a hot bath.
Right.
And maybe just stretch out on the bed and read a couple of chapters in a book. Now, if you can do more than that, if you feel comfortable and spending a day and letting mom go do what she wants, great, or dad, depending. But there are all kinds of ways, you know. I found that people that I knew really well that loved me a lot. I'm thinking of a girlfriend and my sister-in-law that when they both had babies about the same time I did, and their babies were fine and mine wasn't. And they didn't, and these people loved me. I mean, they were, and they didn't know how to act. No. And I remember my sister-in-law once, we were all going to my parents and bringing our babies who were little then. And my sister-in-law called and she was talking to my mother, and she, you know, I don't know if we should come, because how is it going to make Dreama and Bob feel when they see Brian, their child, who is fine? I said, give me the phone. I told her, I said, I am not going to miss my nephew growing up and watch him and his milestones, because you can't do this to me. That would be punishment. Right. And I, you know, I want, when we're together, Colin is not normal, obviously, but I want us to carry on as normally as we possibly can. And whatever the abnormality is, Bob and I will handle it. Yeah. If there's a fit thrown or, you know, something like that, then Bob and I will handle it. But you can't stay away from me because you're afraid it's going to hurt me, because the other is going to hurt me much more. Right. I think that's a huge thing, you know, to bring up, because the fact that a lot of the time, and it's like when somebody dies, nobody knows what to say. Yes. Or, you know, somebody's going through something, I don't know what to say. And, you know, best I say nothing. Best I don't do anything. And this is the time somebody just needs you to say nothing, but just be there. Be there for them. Or if you just say, if there is anything I can
Yeah.
do, and mean it,
I mean
you know,
it. Follow
let
up
me
on it.
know.
Yeah.
Call me right away. Because generally, I know in my case, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but I would have had to be in real dire straits to call on somebody to help. But it always made me feel less alone and better able to cope when somebody said, if you need me, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And they would have had I, and there have been times that I have actually, you know, reached out for help, but it's so important. You don't have to do anything. Nobody expects you to fix it.
Right.
I think men especially think that,
yes.
you know, if they can't fix the problem, then they should just, but that nobody's looking to you for the answers or for.
It's not a fixable problem. It's a manageable problem.
Yes.
And it's how do you manage it and how can you help the people managing it?
Right.
That's the thing, because it's not going to go away. There is no cure for it. It's literally a question of managing it. And of course, from day to day, it can change. But the more skills you have, the more management skills that you have, the easier it is because you know what to do in those situations. And, you know, really that again is kind of a reflection on life in general, isn't it? Well, you know, we're not going to get through life without something, whether people get ill or separate or this, that, there's something that's going to happen to you. And some things are permanent. They're going to stay. And so you have to learn how to manage it. And once you learn how to manage it, it kind of becomes something that is a friend. And you learn how to not beat yourself up about it, not punish yourself about it, not persecute yourself about it, and just get on with it because you know how to manage it. Look for the good things in it, because there's always something good in it, even in something that you perceive as bad.
That's so true. And sometimes you don't see the good in the moment.
No.
Or you don't see the reason in the moment. I know in my case, it was maybe 10 years after Bob died. I'm going to tell this story because I tell it in my book, and it was very overwhelming in a good way. But I have a radio station called Little Buddy Radio. And at one time I had a morning show on there. So on the morning show, I tried to always do positivity and live your life with gratitude and all those things. Always tried to keep the show upbeat and help people get through their day and start their day well and all that. So we were working on gratitude at this time. So for about a year doing this morning show, after the show was over, I would take my dog for a walk and practice gratitude. I would thank the universe for the blue skies and the mountain breeze and the sunshine and the fact that I had a home and my son has care and all those different things, just the, you know, things that you would normally. And one day I went out with my dog with no forethought, nothing. This came out of nowhere. I was walking down the road, kind of a private road, but still a road. And suddenly I fell to my knees and I was crying like a baby, thanking God for all the difficult parts of my life. And I really, the Colin's diagnosis, because I could see in that moment that his diagnosis had put me on a path that I didn't realize I was on for the longest time, that I was so grateful to be on. The fact that I'd had a wonderful marriage for almost 30 years where Bob had left me, even though I didn't feel this at the very beginning, Bob had left me well equipped to go forward, even though I didn't feel like I was. I don't know. I was just so grateful to God for all the hard parts. And that was when I went, okay, it took me a while to get to this spot on my knees on the side of the road, crying like a baby for about 35, 40 minutes, unable to stop. But it gave me an appreciation for everything hard that I'd been through, because you don't learn when you're on the mountaintop.
No, you do not. No, you do not.
You learn when you're in the valleys. You learn what you're made of and how to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And when you feel like you can't take another breath and keep going, somehow you do. And that's how you learn. And that's the value, I think. And in that moment, all of that became really, really clear to me. For all those years with Colin, you know, I would be like, why my child? Why
Yes.
my child? You know, and I'm sure a lot of us do that. The only child I ever had. Why couldn't we have a normal mother-son experience? But then in that moment, I just understood it all and was grateful for the hard parts. And that's hard when you're in them, you know.
I know.
It's like you said, something good comes from
Yes. And you know,
whatever you're going through.
this, you know, this is saying that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And you
Oh,
know
I used
that
to hate that saying.
I know. But when you actually understand what that means, and that means I was there and I was in despair.
Right.
And I chose to find the courage and the strength to discover my abilities, discover my skills, discover my purpose, to discover me. And then I stepped into that in that true abundance. And I look back to where I was and where I am today. I am grateful for everything that got me here.
Exactly. Oh, that's perfect, because it is, I don't know, it was just such an overwhelming thing to feel that gratitude. I've been working on gratitude for all the good things all that time, you know, to feel gratitude for all of it.
Yes.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, and to know that, you know, all of that had made me the woman I became, or I was becoming. And all of that had been valuable, such valuable lessons I learned, and to know that I wasn't alone, even when I felt like I was, you know. I felt so alone at times. And it's a scary thing when you have a really smart husband like I did, who was an avid reader and read everything. And you know, when Colin was diagnosed, we both were, but reading and trying to get all the information we could. And to have that person who has your back, who loves you more than anything, who's there, that you can turn to and go, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
To have that taken away, and to know that everything was up to me. Every decision made on Colin's behalf was mine to make. And I didn't have Bob's good brain to bounce it off of, you know.
But you did.
That was so terrifying.
Yeah, I know, but you did, because it was there in your subconscious. It just had you to activate, right? And you know, I'm an empathic person, and I know very much his presence is with you even now.
Yes.
You can feel it. You can feel him very, very strongly with you now. And he always will be. You know, he's got your back, literally.
Probably in ways that he wouldn't have been able to here on this earth, you know. So no, it really is true. It just felt very lonely at first. But like I said, he left me equipped in ways I didn't really understand. I was equipped to be able to keep on keeping on, you know. And that moment on my knees on the side of the road, it just all came together, and it was the most cleansing feeling. It was a weight. Now, that's not to say everything's perfect. I still have moments when I'm overwhelmed and all of that, but a weight was lifted, and I felt like I was walking down that road with my dog and my husband and everything good and bad. I mean, to have oh gosh, just to have thankfulness for the hard parts was such an astonishing thing to me. Because I've not been thankful for the hard parts, you know?
But also to have the hard parts, but have such a strong partner to go through it with you. You know, I do know many people whose husbands left them because of the child. And, you know, now they're now left entirely alone in doing this. They've got to be everything. And you know how hard it is. And, you know, yet they chose to battle. They chose to battle and go through it. And of course, not everybody is equipped for it, but they don't know if they're equipped for it if they don't try, right? They could try.
That's for sure. And you know, you're going to have good days where you're just like, yes, I can do. And I still have days when I feel like, oh, I can't do this. Bob, where are you? Kind of thing. But no, it's very, Oh gosh, I have always been so blessed by Bob. Another reason I wrote the book, because he would never have left me
No,
to deal with this by myself,
no,
ever.
not in his
And
character.
when I say to the women out there who have had that happen,
Hmm.
whose husbands did up and leave, and you hear of it a lot.
Hmm.
We did a program with Colin out of Philadelphia for a lot of years at the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential. And we were on that program for about 5 years, and you'd go back every 4 months for revisits. And I talk about this in the book too. But you'd go back, for revisits, and you'd see families. You start out with a group, and then you'd go back, and some of the group would be there. I can't tell you how many times over the years that we went back and the mom was there by herself.
Yeah.
Because the husband split. And I can't, there's no part of me that can understand that. And I know how blessed I was that didn't happen to me. Because there are people who I don't want to say men especially, I don't want to pick on men, because there are wonderful men who, like Bob, who step up and come through. But gosh, to be left alone with it, ladies.
Yes.
I could cry for you, because that would be so hard. I can't imagine.
What did Bob die from?
Well, it started out throat cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then it through his voice box.
Mm.
And it in preparation for the surgery, the radical neck surgery to remove his voice box, which for an actor, can you imagine that?
Yeah.
And for the actor's wife, when you know you're never going to hear his voice again,
Right.
I couldn't imagine anything that could be much worse. But in the process of getting ready for that surgery, they discovered a heart problem, which I now suspect Bob knew he had, but didn't share with me because he wouldn't want to worry me. Maybe I don't know what he didn't talk about it. So I don't know. But between this surgery, he was doing quite well. And though we would have had to write notes and things, I think he could have survived that. But 1 month later to the day, he went through a quadruple bypass, and he just never bounced back from that. So it was about, and I write all about that in my book, but it was about 6 months from diagnosis to passing away. So a really tough 6 months.
Yeah, most of it.
And I had a heart attack in that 6 month period. About 4 months into it, I was in Winston-Salem I'm in West Virginia, and everybody here goes to Winston-Salem to Wake Forest Baptist when they have serious problems. So I was there with Bob, and my son, our son, was here with caregivers that I did not know very well at the time. We had just gotten a caregiver, oh gosh, about 8 months before Bob was diagnosed. We finally gave in and said, yes, we'll let somebody come in and help us, because the doctor he came to do a house visit with Colin, and he looked at us and he said, how long have you been doing this? And we told him, and he said, you can't keep doing this. You're going to have somebody come in and help. Yeah. So at that point, almost 21 years into it, we did that. But I didn't know this caregiver that well. Now, at this point, he's been with Colin for 18 years.
Wonderful.
So again, I'm so blessed. But at that time, he was brand new to me. So I was there with my husband, who was fighting for his life. And my son was up here, took a fall, broke his arm. So I was trying to go back and forth between the two. It was the stress finally caught up with me.
Yeah. And it wasn't just that stress, it was accumulation of 21 years.
Exactly. So, it wasn't just that, it was all of that. And I ended up in the hospital room next to Bob. It was and the nurses, we had such a great love story down there. The nurses were so wonderful. They just couldn't believe my devotion to him. And of course, again, I had the freedom to be able to be there every day and all the time. And so after I had the heart attack and I was in the room next to him, they took my bed and pushed it into his room, our beds next to each other. Yes. So we could sleep and hold hands.
Oh,
isn't that so sweet?
Yeah, that's respect.
I kind of forgotten that. It was it's really special.
It meant a lot to the both of you.
It did.
Yeah,
for sure.
So Colin has a caregiver now, and you say, does he live with you, or is he living elsewhere now?
He lived until about 4 years after Bob passed away, Colin and the caregivers lived upstairs in my house. But before he got sick, there was a house, I'm on top of a mountain here in West Virginia. So the only house close to me is the house across the road, and it went up for sale, and Bob and I bought it. Bob's idea, he was planning ahead, and which I don't know that I would have done. I was, when you're up to here, and it,
do I want to take anything more on? Yes,
but I'm not even thinking ahead.
Yeah, right.
Like,
exactly.
What's going to happen if something happens to Bob? How, So anyway, we bought this little house across from me, and he lives there now. So it's Colin's house with caregivers. He's got 3. 2 of them have been with him 18 years, and one of them has been with him like 12 years. And they, for a parent, there's nothing. They love Colin. They know him really, really well. I know them really well.
Right.
My son is nonverbal, so it's very important to me that I know and trust the people who are taking care of him.
So it's extended family now.
They are. David, David and his wife, Sarah. Actually, David is like a son to me. I think of him that way. He's not all that much older than Colin, maybe 4 or 5 years, and so he's like a son. I don't know what I would do without him. And they have never left me in all these years. Bob will be gone 17 years in September, and in those 17 years, they have never once left me high and dry during a snowstorm. So they're always there. They have never left me for 1 second, taking care of Colin, who's gotten much better, in his 30s. He started, it took a while. But he loved it when he moved to his own little house. He loved it. He really, I think there's a part of the human being that whether you can function on your own or not, you have that independent thing in you that doesn't want to live with mom anymore. That wants to. So I don't know, when he moved over there when he was about 24, 25, and late in his 20s, things started calming down, and now in his 30s, he's, I'm sure they have behaviors sometimes, but nothing like Bob and I had when we were doing it.
And sometimes you're so close to it too. Having that outside help kind of lets off the steam, lets off the pressure, right? So it's I had a friend who had an Asperger's and a severely autistic child with also OCD and a few other problems, and she would have the radio on, the computer on, and the TV on at the same time, and would be doing this and doing that, and had eating problems, and then would have the violent outbursts. And she fought for help for so long, and eventually the association bought a house to move her into with caregivers, and then to move in a couple of other people as well, so that it was cheaper in the long run to have them in a house with the caregivers than it would be to put them in any other institution. And she thrived from that. Suddenly she was independent from mum, and what mum didn't realize she was doing was, are you okay? Is everything all right? And that anxiety all the time was actually creating things, to be even more tense. And now it's just much easier. She can visit, and there isn't that same kind of stress. And I'm a reader, and so I had a friend with an autistic child and nonverbal, couldn't speak, high energy, and I got him to turn the cards for me, and I was able to read and see what was going on in his life, that I could tell her that she obviously that he couldn't portray. And I managed to get 45 minutes attention out of him, which blew her away, that I got that length of time. And I was able to tell her what was, because her husband left, what was causing the problem, and how he felt secure with the caregiver more than the mother, because the mother was worried about the father leaving, and was it enough, and all of that. And her tension was causing him tension. And with the caregiver, it was exactly. And so she said, this is the only time she's ever had what's going on in his mind, just because I was able to see that, and it gave her a great deal of release to understand that. So I can understand when they're nonverbal, how
Yes.
they cannot articulate.
It, it's, I know Bob and I were, both of us were really hesitant about giving up control.
Right.
And I understand parents who feel that way. Believe me, we did the same thing. First of all, nobody's going to love your kid the way you do.
Right.
Secondly, nobody's going to understand because you've been, deciphering things
Yes.
for his whole life. We didn't want to give up control. And when the doctor said we had to, and the doctor, of course, was right, because obviously Bob was sick.
Yes.
In the
And
midst
you
of
too.
everything,
Yeah.
I just wasn't seeing it, you know. And when we finally relinquished, now they were still in the house with us, so it wasn't like we were that far away.
Right.
But we had David coming 8 hours a day, I think, on weekdays. And this went on for 2 weeks. And we went to him, we said, do you have any other friends who do this kind of work who might want to do weekends? So after Bob passed away, when we moved Colin 4 or 5 years later, when we moved him next door or across the road, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but at that point he had caregivers. So I still had control because he was here, but he moved out. And I won't go into the details. David did it in the most awesome way to move Colin over there bit by bit. So that one night I'm sitting here like 10 o'clock at night, my phone rings. It's David, the caregiver. And I picked it up and I said, what are you calling me for? Because I thought he was upstairs, right? They had finished moving the last of Colin's things without me knowing it over there. They were going to spend the first night in the house over there. I walked around this house. I was like, oh my gosh. I turned on the music. I blasted it as loud as I could because loud music bothered him, right? I danced. This sounds horrible, I guess. But
no, it isn't horrible at all.
I danced all over this house. And the next morning, when I woke up, I didn't wake up to screaming and Colin throwing fits. The house was quiet. I slept as long as I wanted to sleep. And then I woke up and it was like celebrating. Now, like your friend, I was over there a lot, checking to make sure everything was okay. But for anybody out there who's struggling with that decision, there is getting your freedom back is pretty huge. And again, I know that I've got a wonderful setup where he's close by. My son has seizures. He has grand mal seizures. So if he has a seizure, they call or text me and I can go right over. I have a really good setup and I know that, but there is something to getting out from under that constant pressure. That is because the pressure, I'm living proof the pressure is going to get to you sooner or later.
Right. It is. Yes.
I really do believe that.
And, it was kind of part from where you started, where they didn't know enough about autism and, you need to institutional your child and no, we're never going to do that. We're going to be there for a child. And then, it was kind of a step-in process of people understanding it, how to treat people with it. But, for you guys, it's like, no, nobody knows better than us. We're going through it. And it's like, if you allow other people in, even to learn from you, they've got their own specialty, but to come in to learn from you and let go of the reins, it allows you to have a life for you. And I think that's, this is a lot, even with people without, with children without any special needs. You've got the parents that are just holding on so tight, especially if it's a single parent where they have to be both parents, and they're so anxious to give their children the very best, and they give themselves nothing. Well, what that teaches the child is that it's okay to sacrifice yourself, and they in turn go and do it themselves, without knowing it. That pattern is installed there. So placing value upon yourself and your own well-being is absolutely essential. It just took you 25 years to get there.
Looking back, once we gave up the control and we should have let people in. Now he has half sisters who would come and visit, and for the time they were here, the weekend or maybe a week, there would be somebody else at least would be around. but what you did for your friend's child.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes new blood,
Yes.
because Colin, I'm telling you, Colin got sick of looking at our faces. I'm pretty
Right.
sure.
Yes.
I hate to
Yes.
say that, it broke my heart, but he would put us in the office upstairs and shut the door and test it to see if it was locked or not. And if it wasn't locked, he would let us know he wanted us locked inside the office. So, you know, we spent a lot of time locked inside. I would need to go cook dinner, and I would be like, every time I try to get out of here, he's like, back in, you know, get back in. So he got really tired of us, and
Yeah.
that makes sense, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
don't know why I couldn't see it then.
Well,
But you know,
because you're a mother and you're a father and you want the best for your child, and you think you are the only ones, especially when you had so little support and information to start off with.
right?
People
We had
now
more.
facing this, there are
Right.
resources, there is information, there's a lot more dialogue going on, and so they know they don't have to do it alone. But you were kind
Right.
of pioneers there. Right, because you didn't know what you were up against, right? And you had each other. As long as we've got each other, we're okay. And it was, you know, you thought you had it down, and it's only when hindsight that you look
Yeah.
down and go, yeah, we should have let people in earlier.
Yes, and that's why I wanted to say that for the families out there who might be struggling with that right now. You know, is it? There's something to be said for having a moment to yourself and a
God,
moment
yes.
to take a hot bath or read
Yeah.
a book or go out to dinner together.
Yes.
Bob and I, for all those years, we did four things together. And that is, they were big things. They were kind of exciting things. One was, no, twice. It was the White House. We were invited to the White House. So we did do those, but only four things in about 20 and a half years.
Yeah.
Did we go out and we didn't, you know, just go out to dinner, just to have dinner. And I don't know, you're only human, and there's only so much you can draw on as a human being. You're going to deplete yourself completely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you need to, you know, you really do need to be aware of that and try to find something for you.
Yeah.
And your
Balance.
spouse, if you're blessed enough to have the spouse still there.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's you sacrificed yourselves for your son, right?
Yeah.
And because you had each other, you didn't deem it as a sacrifice. And it's
That's
so
true. You know, it's kind of what the doctor said in his speech to us. You know, you're gonna, not our lives weren't destroyed, but they were certainly turned upside down.
Yeah.
And Bob and I happily, thank you, Lord, loved each other enough that it didn't destroy that at all.
Right.
But not in any way, shape, or form. But it, you know, if we had had part-time help, you know, somebody come in on the weekend or somebody come in a couple of days a week, and you know, but so folks, you know, if you're in that situation, give it some thought, because it doesn't mean you don't love your kid. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean any of that.
No. And the thing is, you're not meant to be alone going through this. You're not meant to be alone. Right.
Exactly.
This is why it takes a village to raise an ordinary child, never mind an extraordinary child. You know, you have to call on the village.
That's right. It does take a village. Wow.
Tell us about
we
the
talked
other
about
books.
some things I've never talked about on interviews. I love it.
Let's talk about your other books. And, you know, obviously now you've got the freedom, you know, your son's being taken care of. And which came first? You know, did the Four Bears and the Box, the Zen and Now, or did Gilligan's Dreams come first? You know, what prompted the actual writing?
Well, Gilligan's Dreams came first. And that was because before he was ever sick, Bob said to me once, he said, look, he thought I was a good writer. And he said, honey, if you ever want to write our story, I'm telling you now, it's okay. But if you do, tell it like it was, warts and all. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't try to make it pretty. Tell it like it was. So that's exactly what I did. People, if you read the reviews on Amazon, people got from the book, oh, it's so gratifying. They got what I wanted people when they read the book I wanted to feel like they were sitting across the table from me and we're having a cup of coffee.
Yes.
And whatever the story is at that part of the book, I wanted to feel like I was telling them that. So I would write it. Let's say I'd write a chapter and I'd read it and I would think, Dreama, that sounds like, you know, an author writing a book.
Yeah.
So if you were telling this, how would you say it if you were telling it? And I would go back and redo it. And so many people have commented on that.
Yeah.
That it's like they're sitting having a conversation with me, which is exactly what I wanted.
Right.
So that part was good. But that was because Bob told me, gave me permission, said I could absolutely do that if I ever wanted to. And then I don't know if you know Homer Hickam, but Homer Hickam wrote the book Rocket Boys that was made into the movie October Sky.
Yes.
With Jake Gyllenhaal and Laura Dern. And it was Homer's memoir, his true story about being a young boy in a coal mining town in West Virginia, seeing Sputnik go overhead and deciding he wanted to do rockets. Well, he became a NASA engineer and trained the shuttle astronauts and all this wonderful stuff. And he's a friend of mine and he encouraged me. He said, look, when I first met him, he was a big fan of Bob's and he said, you know, I think you should write the book. So that's how that one came to be. Now, Four Bears in a Box, which is a multi-award winning, international award winning children's book. That all came from Bob. He never got to see it, but it was pretty amazing to me. Colin, when we were taking care of Colin, loved Dr. Seuss. He loved rhyming books. And so, when I tell you I read Dr. Seuss, all of them, tens of thousands of times. I am not exaggerating. So I used to be able to do them all by heart. But anyway, so Bob came to me one day and he said, look, I think you should write a children's book. And I said, you do you? Really? And he's like, no, I think you should. And I said, well, I could try, but I said, I'd have to come up with, you know, something, a concept that little kids would like. And he said, I already have the title for you. And I was like, okay, what is it? And he said, Four Bears in a Bag. And I said, what would four bears be doing in a bag? And he goes, that's what you got to figure out. That was very Bob. So I did. I figured it out. I wrote the story, you know, typewritten pages and all that. Read it to him. He liked it. And then Colin got 16, 17, harder to handle, challenging. And of course, then Bob got sick. Bears got put away. Didn't think about them again until 2019. I was spring cleaning and I was going through a drawer and there was a manila envelope and I wondered what it was. Opened it up, took it out. There were the typewritten pages along with pencil sketches that Bob had done of what he imagined the bears would look like. So I looked at it. At this point, I have a manager and I called him and I said, I wrote a children's book. And he goes, when? And I said, 20 years ago. And he goes, what? And I said, Bob inspired this like 20 years ago. Can we get it to a publisher? So he said, yes. We got it to a publisher. She liked it, took it right away. Now the title changed from Four Bears in a Bag to Four Bears in a Box because 20 years later, the publisher called and they said, you know, children aren't going to know what a brown paper bag is. And I said, well, that's true. And they said, so would you mind changing the title? And I was very married to, emotionally married to Four Bears in a Bag. And I said, let me think about it overnight. What do we want to change it to? And they said, Four Bears in a Box. And suddenly I thought, children love boxes.
Yes.
They like boxes more than whatever came out of the box. And that opens up a whole new, the box can be a reward for good behavior and minding mom and in their imagination, it can become anything and they can go anywhere. And okay, I'm kind of liking it. But during that evening, as I was thinking it over, I literally could hear Bob's voice in my head going, honey, if they think the bears are going to do better, if you put them in a box, put them in a box. It doesn't matter. 2 letters. Yes. AG to OX, not a big deal. And I went, okay. And then I realized the box theme was really a good theme. And I wrote it. And the beginning is the same as when Bob read it. The ending is the same as Bob read it, but the middle, going from bag to box, had to change a little bit, you know. But I am so, there's art in there. My illustrator is wonderful. And there's art in there where the box becomes a hot air balloon.
Mm-hmm.
And they're flying over an island, and they look down and Gilligan is waving up to them.
Ah, lovely.
So I worked Bob into the book. And then in June, I have the second bear book is coming out. It's called Four Bears in a Box, Back to the Beach, where they go back to the beach to look for the man in the red shirt. And it's really the creatures they meet along the way, very different than they are, and how they all become great friends and learn to appreciate each other's uniqueness and all of that. So it's going to be a whole series of books. They're always going to be looking for Gilligan.
Mm-hmm. Good.
We call him Gilligan. When Bob used to do personal appearances, little kids who couldn't say Gilligan, they couldn't do the L. First, we call him Gilligan, which we thought was perfect.
Yes, absolutely.
And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to call him in the book then. So yeah.
Giggle. I love it. What about
Gilligan.
the Zen and Now?
Zen and Now. Oh, I love this little book. This just came out. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure the publisher has gotten her copies in yet to get them going on Amazon, but I do have them on bobdenver.com, and she'll get them going soon if it hasn't happened already. But back in July, I lost my love of my life dog. Are you a dog person?
Oh, yes. I haven't had one in a few years, and I still miss her, even though it's 6 years ago. Yes, absolutely.
I've had dogs all my life, but my Zen made me a dog person.
Right.
It was just the two of us. We had a soul connection.
Yeah.
You know, when you have that animal that does that.
They know you from the soul, heart, spirit out. You know,
they do.
They're just.
He was my heart.
Yes. Yes.
He was my heart. I just loved him so much. And when he died, I had to have him put to sleep, which is something I've never had to do. And when that happened, I'm telling you, I cried every day. I mean, it was like losing a person that you love in your life, you know. And everything was so empty. And about 2 days after he died, I called my publisher and I said, I have to write a book about the love between a dog and his person. And he was a rescue, and I'm very big on rescuing. And so I said, I want to, you know, and she said, do it. Go for it. I kind of gave her a pitch, what I wanted to do, and she liked it. And she said, just go for it. So I did. And it's a book. I can show it to you right here. It's so sweet, but it's not a huge book, but it really is about some of our adventures together. And then about the Rainbow Bridge and just those things that give you comfort.
Yeah.
Because really people couldn't talk to me enough about the Rainbow Bridge. After Zen passed away, I was like, I want to believe. As a matter of fact, when I had him put to sleep, I said to him, when I get there, the first thing I see better be you making a beeline for me.
Yes.
I don't care if anybody else meets me, but you have to be there, you know? And that's how I felt. And so I wanted to write a book that was not like Old Yeller, where I didn't kill the dog off in the book. I didn't want to do it that way because children, this is like 4th grade and up. Adults will love it, but it's really like an early chapter book for older children. And but the Rainbow Bridge part is very obvious that that's where we are. And it all makes sense when you read it. And I did it very gently and with a lot of love. So.
And, you know, let's face it, those beautiful spirits aren't here for very long on earth. But the light and the brightness that they bring is just so, you know, 100%. And so a child in growing up is most certainly going to lose a pet before they become the adult in many ways. And it's for them to understand the gift that animal was and still is after they've gone. And that, you know, we have to let them go. We have to let them go home. We have to let them go home. They've been here. They've done their job. They've loved us like nobody else can love us. And
talk about unconditional love and forgiveness and loyalty and all those beautiful qualities that I don't care how much we love each other as human beings. We don't have that same.
No.
You know?
And I've literally had a dog save my life. We
Oh,
would have both
really?
been, oh yeah, a quick story on that. A border collie, I had been given an antidepressant because depression is one of those things I've dealt with in my life. And it was a new pill on the market, and it made me feel like I was high. And I'm driving in South Africa along a cliff road, and there's a big bend where you can actually pull in and stop and look down. It's very, very beautiful.
Mhm.
But I thought I could fly. And a lot of people have committed suicide over there, which I had no intention of doing. I just thought I could fly. I'm in an
Oh,
open
wow.
sports car, and my dog barks at me, and I bark back at her. She paws me, I paw her. And the next moment, as we're heading for that bend, she threw her entire body over me. And I'm driving stick, not automatic. My foot comes off. I come to a standstill. My tires are on the edge of the cliff.
Oh,
And and
oh.
and it's like I'm snapped out of where I was at. And I don't even know how long I was there. And she just threw her body right on top of me. Right. And I had no intention of committing suicide. I just thought we could fly. And that drug actually ended up causing a number of people dying through these hallucinations. They had to take it off the market. But how did she know? How did she know? And had she not, we wouldn't be here.
So, so connected to you.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's nothing, there's really, there's nothing like that, that love. I mean,
No, it's so pure.
it's just, it is so pure from
Yeah.
there. And so my Zen passed away in July, and I swore I would never do it again.
But you
I
have.
couldn't possibly do it again. I couldn't go through this again. And I missed him so badly. And the house was so empty. And it was like the silence was deafening. There was nobody in here but me, not another living, breathing thing. And I was, so about 2 months ago, I just on my Zen who died was a Husky mix. And so I love Huskies. I found out. No, he was my first Husky.
Yeah, I'm a border collie fan. That's my breed.
Bob and I used to talk about getting border collie.
Gorgeous, gorgeous creatures.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. But anyway, so I, just on a whim, went to the animal shelter. And as I walked in, I said, they're not going to have any Huskies. There's no way.
Right.
Those don't end up in animal shelters that often. They're going to have hunting dogs and bird dogs, and and there'll be nothing that will grab me, and famous last word. So I walked in, there were 2 Huskies, not just one, but 2. And mine, I named him Finn, which I didn't even think of at the time, rhymed with Zen, didn't even think of that. But Finn, he's all white. He's an all white Husky.
Beautiful.
And so I looked up good names for all white dogs, and Finn means white or fair. And I thought, okay. So then I realized they rhymed, and there you go. I don't know what to tell you. I called him Zen for the first 3 weeks. It took me forever. But he just felt, believe me, first 3 weeks, I thought, I don't know if I can do this. I'm getting too old. He was like, he's a year and a half, but it's still a lot of puppy in him, and very strong, and wanting to pull me around. But we're finally, after about a month, we started kind of getting some rhythm going. And he is just, he's got one brown eye and one blue eye, which I thought was going to be weird at first. But I went at the very beginning, I thought, okay, maybe dogs with 2 different eyes, maybe they're harder to train, or maybe they're crazy, or maybe something. But so I went to Google and see if that meant anything. And I saw a Native American myth about dogs with one brown and one blue eye. And I loved what it said. I opened it up, I clicked on it, and it said, Native Americans believe that dogs with one blue eye and one brown eye see heaven and earth simultaneously.
Yes. Yes.
I said, that's my dog right there.
And that actually is, and that is Bob bringing that dog to you to say there's still the connection, right? I'm still here. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're doing really good. We're not perfect yet, but we're getting there. And he's lying right behind me right now, quietly. I was kind of worried. I thought,
I have many a dog that's been in a show. Don't worry about it. We love him.
Okay, good. If we ever do this again, then I'll just bring him on.
Oh God, yes.
And we'll just go. He's really a sweetheart. So that's just as the Zen book is coming out, I have Finn now, but you know that I did find, and I didn't believe it when I was told this at the beginning, but a new dog does ease the pain.
Oh God, it does.
And
And
I mean, it
also,
really does.
you're not offending the old dog by getting a new one.
I know.
Not
I
at
felt like
all.
I was cheating on him though.
No,
But
no. They want you to, they have ignited that heart and love in you. And they say, no, now you've got to give it to someone else.
he would want me to rescue another
Yeah,
puppy.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there's going to be a Finn book. We'll see.
Of
I have to have
course,
him
of course. You got to
but
have
I
some
think
Finn
there's going to be
adventures.
a Finn book, and I think Finn is going to have a guardian angel dog
Called Zen.
that's going to be Zen. Will be his guardian angel dog, and
Yeah.
try to help him not be such a troublemaker in life. You know, try to tell him the right way. Anyway, I think there's going to be a Finn book too.
Excellent.
It'll take a little bit longer for me to get to know him a little bit better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you ever go back to acting?
Oh, you know, when Bob first died, I thought about that a lot because somehow it felt like it would bring me closer to him. But here's the thing. Back when I was a young actress, before I met Bob, and I worked with great actors like Sal Mineo and Doug McClure and all these people I worked with before Bob, I was the sweet young thing, the love interest. I was, that's how I left acting, as the young romantic interest for all the hot leading men, right? If I went back now, I would have to be the grandmother, maybe even the great grandmother.
Nonsense, not the way you look. No, never sell yourself short.
You.
You know, this is one of the things I advocate. I'm 67. I started podcasting at 57, so I'm doing it 10 years now. It's never too late to find a passion or do something. And you know, one of the things that we're seeing with the Judi Denchs and the Helen Mirrens and the Jane Fondas and the Betty Whites is that if you still have a love and passion for something, who cares what the number is? It's about what you bring to the table, and it doesn't mean you have to be.
And at this age, you bring so much more.
Exactly.
Because you have lived some life.
And especially with what you've lived with, you know, what you can bring, you know, is even more depth. And then it's never too late. So leave that door open. Leave that door open. Don't dictate and don't assume. Just allow.
No, you're right. You're right. It would be, you know, I did comedies. I was going to say primarily, I think comedies and musicals. I think that's all of what I did. I don't remember doing any dramas. But, you know, now something dramatic, something that brings tears or emotion. So I could go there in a really big way now.
Right.
In a way that I couldn't have done it in my 20s and 30s.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So, okay, I'm not going to close that door then. We're going to leave it open.
I don't want that door closed.
See what happens.
Yeah.
You never know. I didn't think I'd be an author.
Exactly.
You know, and here I am, and I didn't think as an award-winning author. That's pretty exciting. And I just thought, you know, you don't know. I really have found that you don't know what life has in store, and you really do have to just leave yourself open to
to whatever. And you'll know as things get presented to you, your core gut will tell you, yes, it's right for me. You know, the thing is, I always say to people, please don't listen to your head. Your head is going to give you every excuse in the book of not to. Listen to your heart and soul. That compass will always guide you right. And never say never, and never sell yourself short.
I think your gut, even more than your heart.
Yeah.
Because I think
that's the soul wisdom. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think it can fool us. I know it's fooled me in my lifetime. But I think when at this stage, at this age, and I'm a little bit ahead of you, but at this age, I think back on the times when my gut said, don't do it. And I did it anyway. And it was the wrong thing to do.
Exactly.
I mean, I think your gut,
I call that the soul wisdom. It is the divine soul wisdom that then resonates with your heart and truth, lifts your spirit into action for your mind to know what it needs to know when it needs to know it.
Oh, your soul wisdom. I love that. No, I'm going to steal that. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, it is, I'm here as a soul igniter. So, you know, it is when we open up and channel that divine wisdom, you know, we then actually understand what the knowledge is for. But when we go
Exactly.
from the knowledge without the wisdom, it's just knowledge for whose sake. The wisdom gives the knowledge definition and meaning and purpose.
Right. No, it's so true, because the times that, even you think about your young romantic dating life,
Yeah.
and when I would date somebody that in here, I was going, yeah, but I want to.
I know.
But I want to. I want to.
Listen.
He's so good looking. He's so charming and whatever, And then you go, no, I should have listened to my soul wisdom. That's what I should have listened to.
And my soul wisdom got my last dog to replace my husband. Once, one of the best things I ever did. Because no one loves me in the world like that dog did, and I think that's the thing. Your children love you, but they always worry about you, or this or that or that, and there's always something that they're concerned about. But with an animal, it is just pure unadulterated love, and you can be yourself in whatever capacity, and that animal is there for you.
You can gain 20 pounds during lockdown. You can not wash your hair for a week. You can, I hear you, that's what I'm talking about. No, I mean, you can do all those things, and the doggy doesn't care.
Not at all. As long as they're with you.
Problem.
Yeah. All they want is to be with you, and that's it. And that kind of love is wonderful. Oh, we've learned so much here today, but, most certainly to summarize it up is a lesson learned is ask for help, right? Ask for help, but also that the true love of a partner is to weather the storms together.
Yeah.
Right. And that you are so much stronger and capable than we ever think, but that it is okay to say, I need help, and to get help.
And I think another thing is that, when we're going through trials and tribulations, that really is where we learn.
Yes.
It's where we find out what we're made of. And so, when you're in the middle of one, even if you can't see it in that moment, know that there's something in there that's going to be valuable when you come out the other side.
Yes.
And now I try to see it in the moment. Yes. Now that I've recognized that, I really, if something happens and I think, okay, now what am I supposed to learn from this? Or what? I just do it in the moment now. So you can teach yourself to do that, I think.
Yes. Well, we're not present enough in our own lives. We're so busy projecting or dictating, or, we don't allow. And that allowing comes by being in the moment. What is it I need to know in this moment now? And sometimes it could just be a blank space. You're meant to know nothing but just be still.
Yes.
Just be present with yourself.
Yes.
Right? And that is something that we don't allow ourselves to do.
We're not still enough. No. We're really not.
No.
It's either the TV's going, or we're busy running the kids around, or whatever we're doing. Stillness is, I think it's a lost art, and I think it's something we really could get back to and benefit from.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn in silence. A lot to learn.
Yeah, there. As I heard Homer Hickam that I was talking about earlier, he gives speeches all over the country, and he was telling me once, oh gosh, this has been 12 years ago maybe, that he worried about young people now because they never just go sit on a riverbank,
right,
and lie back and just look at the clouds.
Yes.
And just they're plugged in.
Yeah.
And this was years ago, so it's worse now than it was when he was telling me this, but I hadn't thought about it that way. And I thought, that's true. When I was a kid, of course, we're talking, back in the Stone Ages here. But when I was
hey, I'm from the same Stone Age.
But when I was a kid, we were outside all the time. And I can remember a creek near my house where there was like a rope swing, like a Tarzan kind of a swing. I mean, the greatest thrill in life was to climb. I loved to climb trees when I was a kid. Climbing a tree or getting on that rope swing and swinging across the creek. It wasn't dangerous. I mean, it wasn't like a big river or anything. And, out in the fresh air, and you could stay out till after dark, and, your parents.
And the community had your back. I mean, I would read my doll's pram and going for a walk all over the neighborhood. I'm 6, 7, 8, nobody worried. because
Yeah.
there weren't the predators out there that there are today. And you know, now if you don't see the kid in the courtyard, where is it? Where is he? You know, and you
That's true.
panic, right? And it's because we've become so predatory, and we've kind of allowed too much of that cynicism to come through
Yeah,
us. And you know, that is something we need to question, because there's good and evil in every one of us. It's what we feed is what's going to grow. And you know, we can all have dark thoughts, we can all go there, but there is that choice of positive living. Do we want to go
exactly.
there? What do we want to feed? Because what we feed is what will grow, right? And if
That's a
we
Native American legend too. Have you heard that one?
no, it's just
The
always
Native,
been my
the
platform.
Native American legend, who I may not have it exactly right, but there are two wolves inside of us.
Yes, yes,
And you
yes.
know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah.
And the one that you know,
The one you
one
feed. Yeah.
is joy and
Mm-hmm.
love, and the other one is this, that, and the other
Yeah.
bad thing. And which one is the one who comes to the forefront, the one you
Right.
feed?
Yes,
And
exactly.
I
And
think it's getting harder and harder to find, you know, quiet and peace in this
yes,
world, just in
yes.
general. And the fact that we, you know, was it Mark Twain or Albert Einstein or somebody who, gosh, I've seen this meme on Facebook, I think, but
Mm-hmm.
where there's a quote by one of them that says something about there will come a day when people won't be um, looking up and looking at each other anymore. They'll
Mm-hmm.
be looking
Yes,
down. And
which
that's
is now.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what we do with the cell phones. And I
Yes.
don't know. I
Yeah.
kind of, gosh, I hate to sound like an old fogey,
No,
but
no,
I
well,
really
I
do
mean, you
kind
know,
of
this
miss
is,
the,
you know, that the 10 years I've been doing this and 3,000 shows and things like this is something we talk about a great deal. We're not engaged in our own lives. We're
yes,
not present in our own lives. We're living this expectational exterior life of what,
yes,
you know, everybody, you know, we're only popular with, or we're only count if, and we don't
yes,
do the interior work. And it's the interior that is desperate for us, the soul, heart, and spirit to connect, so that we actually can live an authentic life from our very essence, for our very beingness. And if we could
yes.
stop chasing the outside and live from the inside out, we realize we're already abundant.
It's really, have you noticed as I've gotten older, I've noticed that, first of all, the urge to purge
Mm-hmm.
is with me practically every day of my life. Because as I've gotten older, I start looking and I, you know, I couldn't have understood this when I was young, but things are just things.
Mm-hmm.
They're just things. It's stuff that when I'm gone, somebody's going to have to come in and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sort through and get rid of. And I keep reading about being a minimalist and having, and that sounds so good to me. I'm like, oh, if I could downsize and get rid of just, I don't know. The urge to purge is like huge with me. I just wonder if anybody else goes through that the way I
I
go
do.
through
And
it.
I think, you know, I was the big 4,000 square foot house. I was born in big houses, and now I'm in 2 rooms in a small apartment, you know, and eventually my daughter's going to build a house on her property for me to live there and help with the children. And they were talking about
Oh,
500
that sounds
square feet. And I thought,
lovely.
500 square feet, you know, I'm not sure I can go that small, but I have stuff around me. But for me, I feel energy in things. And so the
Yeah,
things around me have got to be things that energetically feed me. That when I look at them, they're
exactly.
feeding me. If they don't feed me, then they don't need to be there.
What is it that the oh gosh, I forget her name. If it hold it, look at it. If it brings you joy,
Mm-hmm.
and if it doesn't bring you joy, get rid
Yep,
of it.
exactly. Yeah.
And I would like. I mean, I'd be like, I'm looking around this room right now, going, okay, well, that doesn't really bring me joy right there. I mean,
Right.
I'm afraid I'd be like clearing it all out. And the sentimental value of things too. And I don't mean to sound like I have no sentimentality, because I do, but it just, you know, all the sentiment, corny as it sounds, is really here.
Yeah.
I mean, the memories are here, and the I don't know. I just, as I've gotten older, it's kind of a surprise to me. I didn't see that sort of, you know, things don't matter. I didn't see that
Well,
coming.
you put the sentiment in the book. That's
Yes,
where that
that's
sentiment is now, right? It's in the
that's
story. And you know, it's you know, I have a grandson now who's 1 year old. I had to wait a long time for him to get this grandson. And you know, every stage he's just cut a tooth, and you know, all of these wonderful things that he's doing. And then, you know, they're more eager now to see the pictures of them when they were children, when they were babies. You know, was
Yeah,
I doing this then? What did I look like then? And all of that. And so all of that means something more to them. So that's why I
right.
hold on to it for them, right? And it's
That's,
I always say there's no harm in looking back, because it shows you where you are today and all the things
that's
that you can
true.
be appreciative of and all the gratitudes that you can have. And there isn't anybody that goes through life without hard knocks, some a great deal harder than others. But the thing
Right.
is, as you said, you broke down and you cried and you lived in gratitude, and you didn't go through it alone. You had the love of your life there. You had
Yeah.
all those years with him. Should the lesson learned, which we should have asked for help earlier, it would have been okay.
Yes,
Um,
it would have been all
but
right.
you know, for him, he had the foresight. Maybe he knew something was happening. Going to get the house across the road. That's where he's
Hmm.
going to be, because he wanted to free you up for you to pursue your life now.
Right. You know, it's really true because he moved, like I said, I'm in West Virginia. That's where I was born and reared. And Bob was the one who wanted to move back here.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember saying, seriously? Because I didn't ever imagine, West Virginia is beautiful. Not being critical of it, I just never imagined coming back here.
Right here.
Once I got to California and, you know, and he said, I just think it would be really nice. And in retrospect, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I can see that he wanted, we were taking care of Colin. He wanted to do it someplace off the beaten path, you know, somewhere quiet and peaceful, which this place is. But also I had at the time, not so much now, but I had family here.
Mm-hmm.
So if and when something happened to him, I wouldn't be left in a strange place, not knowing somebody. Like
Right.
when we lived in Vegas, we didn't know anybody there, you know.
Yeah.
We moved here from Vegas, and I don't know, I can see again, that's what going those decades down the road, when I look back and suddenly I started seeing like how purposefully he had made some choices
Mm-hmm.
that I could see were from my
Benefit.
because he was older. Bob was almost 16 years older than I was. So so he knew it would probably go the way it went, which would be
Right.
he would be the first one to leave, you know. So I don't know. It's I like you, Sarah. You're fun. I really
Thank you.
enjoy doing
Right
this with
back
you.
at you, darling. Right back at you. I've been looking forward to this one, most certainly. And you know, the thing, just like he dedicated his life to making people smile, he didn't, you know, he didn't care if he was, you know, the playing the silly beggar. You know, if he got a
Right.
smile out of people, and like, you know, when, as I said at the top of the hour, in Gilligan's Island, nobody would have survived without him, even though everybody treated him as the idiot, right?
That's right.
And the thing
But he
is
did
that,
mess a thing up here and there.
but you know,
He did make a mess of things. But you know, when he created that character, he told me that his whole idea, first of all, he wanted it to appeal to, I got shadows now on me. Hello, the sun is changing out there. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But he wanted to create a character that messed up,
Yeah.
which Gilligan did, and made everybody mad.
Mm-hmm.
And they would send him to the cave on the other side of the island. They'd be so mad at him. But what he wanted was for children to see that that could happen. You could mess up, do something wrong.
Right.
Mom and dad get mad, siblings get mad, friends get mad. But in the end, they loved you.
Yes.
And you would always be forgiven. That's what he wanted that character
Right.
to be for children. He wanted to be the childlike person who messed up all the time, but they loved him so much they couldn't stay mad at him.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
So I think he achieved that.
Oh, he
in a good
definitely
way.
achieved that. He definitely. And look at it, it's still on today, still pleasing generations today, which is absolutely fabulous.
50, I guess this year is going to be 58
Wow.
years.
Wow.
22. Wait a minute. I can't do the math in my head that quickly.
Well, it started in, was it the 60s or 70s?
It was the 60s, and it was 63. So I can't do this. 63. I can't do the math in my
That's
head.
okay. So
I'm
that's
under
40,
pressure.
50, 60. So it is 59 years.
Okay. It would not be 59 yet. I think last year. See, I'm thinking 2022 is 58 years because last year I thought was 57. Anyway, 57 or 58 years that show has been on the air.
And it's still
And,
pleasing people. Yeah. And I actually
and
remember we took the family away. It was the farewell last family holiday, you know, with my ex. We went away as a family, and I was actually on the island swimming, and the rest of the family went scuba diving, which I didn't want to do. And I remember just floating in those waters. I got megally sunburned. I ended up being this red at the end of the day. But I remember lying in those waters, I just away from people and just because water is such a conduit for me, and just really being so peaceful, and that water was just so wonderful. So, you know, and just remembering the happy times of actually watching the show, because, you know, we didn't have it in South Africa when I was living there, but when I first came to Canada, it was on the air already on replay, and I watched a lot of the episodes, if not all of them, and, you know, always the shenanigans and everything else, but always the, you know, from the chaos comes the clarity, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. When Bob passed away, the show had been on the air for 40 years. I think 41 years it had been on, and he couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
He was like, so now he would be like, you've got to be kidding me.
Well,
It's
because
still going.
The message is still very apropos, you know, and
Here's
you know,
the
and
other thing
it
that
shows
people,
people want simplicity, you know. So
yes. And the other thing is, unlike other shows from the late 50s, early 60s, even in the 70s, even in the 80s, you can't place Gilligan's Island at any particular time.
no.
There are no telephones, no cars,
Right.
no
No
furniture,
fashion. Yeah.
no fashion, no nothing, just Ginger in her slinky gowns and Marianne in her gingham, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that Bob, when people used to ask Bob, what makes you think that the show has such longevity? He would say, because you can put it on the air today,
Yeah.
right now, in color, and you would not know that it wasn't made in the studio last month.
Right.
Because it's not dated in any way. And I thought, wow, that really is true. You know, the show, you're on an island, beautiful, you got like a coconut bamboo car, you know, and in the third season, I mean, you don't have anything that can put it in any particular time or place.
And you know, today, you know, of course, we have, you know, kids will go, but yeah, but what about the cell phones? Well, you know what? They're on an island without satellite, and they don't have
Exactly.
a phone. So this is actually what life was like pre-phones, you know.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Rotary or otherwise.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
I know. It's a great show, and something they never, none of them ever expected, obviously, that it would be on years later. And, you know, Bob felt like he was a young actor when it went off the air. I think he was 33 years old. And, you know, he wanted to spread his wings as an actor and do other things. And of course, he was so typecast. Nowadays, it's not so bad.
Right.
People can jump from network to network because there's so much now. But back then, you know, he was so well known. What in the days when there was CBS, ABC, and NBC, if you were on CBS, which he was, you know, even if somebody didn't watch your show, they knew who you were, because there weren't that many famous people when you got right down to it.
Yeah.
Not that many people had series on television, you know. So, you know, but the longevity is a wonderful thing, and I know he'd be shocked, but I'd love to be able to represent him, and I love when I get a chance to tell people. Again, the reason I wrote the book was because I wanted people to know him and not just Gilligan. And,
the other side of Gilligan.
The other side of the island. That's what it was. And he was really worth knowing. Again, I don't want people to think that I've written a book with rose-colored glasses and made him perfect. He is not perfect. And he told me, don't do that. Tell it like it was. So that's what I do. Imperfections and all. And I hope people will pick it up, especially if you're dealing with special needs and caregiving and all of that. I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor, but I can.
Well, I think 38 years of living with this has made you an expert, my dear.
With my kid, it does.
Yes,
You know?
Absolutely. You know,
I'm
because
a Colin expert.
I always say the best teachers are those that have gone through it. and you've certainly gone through it. And you know, and by your own admission, we should have asked for help earlier. And then look
Yes.
where he is today. He's thriving, you know,
Yes.
and you know, you guys should have given yourselves more permission to let go of those reins, but you were
We should
doing
have.
what you knew best at the time, based on what information was out there at that time.
There was not a lot of information in
No,
the 80s. I'm
no,
sorry.
no,
There wasn't, you
no.
know.
And really, it's
So,
only in the last 20 years, even 15
yeah.
years, that it's really come more to the forefront where we're seeing it. And, you know, like we had that autistic child win America's Got Talent, you know, playing the piano.
Oh, yes.
Yes, he's blind and autistic, but when he plays the piano, he transforms into someone else and just sings absolutely incredibly. And it opened up to that world, is that nobody is throwaway, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has got something to challenge, and it's just a question of how we look at it and how we
Right.
treat it, how we treat ourselves. So yeah, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I have so enjoyed this conversation.
I have so enjoyed it too. I just think you're great.
Right back at you, darling, right back at you. And you know, the journey that you've taken is not one you would have designed for yourself, but you know, it's you had the struggle there for quite some time, but look at where you are now. You didn't curl up and die when he died. You didn't give up, right? You know, you transformed, and that is an inspiration in itself.
If anybody had told me right before I got pregnant with Colin, okay, here's how it's going to go down, I would have said, forget it. I can't do this.
Right.
There's no way. There's no way I'll be able to do it. I'm not that strong. I'm not that this. I'm not that. And what you know, you end up surprising yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do what you have to do, like it or not.
Yeah.
Easy or not. And again, that's what forms the person you become. So if people can look at their trials that way and just know that there's something good in there,
yes,
something good is going to come out of it. You know, it took me a while to figure that out. Again, it took me a couple of decades to figure that out. But
it's also never too late. It's never too late. Look who you are now. You're an author, best-selling author, back into the movies or TV soon, I predict. And you know, you're living your life, you know, and that's the thing. It's never sell yourself short. Always be in self-discovery, because you never know who you're meant to be. You've had many chapters in your book of life, but that doesn't mean your book is over. You've still got many more chapters to go.
I'm counting on it. Let me tell you, I am. And we have to make sure that your grandson gets a 4 Bears in a Box.
Oh gosh, yes, most certainly. They've read to him almost from the day he's been born. They're avid readers.
It's so cool because he's young right now, have to be read to and all that. I know that. But you know, when he's like 4 and 5 years old, I've had parents send me pictures of how they took Amazon boxes and put like paper plates as wheels and they got really creative and they would send me pictures. It made it, being a children's author, I'm telling you, it affected me in a way I never expected. To think that I put something out into the world for our youngest, for our young ones, something that every time a grandparent buys the book and at book signings and says to me, oh, tonight I'm going to curl up with my grandson and read this. It does something to my heart.
Yes.
It really, really does. I just, you know, I expected Gilligan's dreams to affect me all over the place. Of course it did. But being a children's author is pretty special.
I had another children's author on this week as well. And we were talking about the impact of how a book goes on forever. And recently we found a book in a secondhand store, Love You Forever. I don't know if you remember that book.
I do remember that.
And my daughter saw it, and her husband had never had it read to him. You know, he was never familiar with it. And she read it to him and couldn't go through it. She was crying too much because it's such a beautiful, endearing book. And that was like something like 30 years later. You know, that this book still meant so much to her. And that's the beauty of books. That's the beauty of children's books. They never die. There's
They
just
really don't.
somebody else picks them up and reads them, and it's something that they need to read in their life, or bring back beautiful memories, or express something on how they feel. And that's the beauty of books. And a children's book just gets passed on. And you know, when
It does.
when the adult reads it to the child, I always believe it ignites the child within them. It connects them back to their own
Yes,
child, which I think is a gift in itself too. So
it really does. I don't know. It's pretty special. I know I like it. It came as a
good.
surprise. You never
Well,
know what life is going to hand you, people. I'm telling you.
no,
You
well,
just don't know.
you're going to have to come back when you've got a couple more books there, and let's talk about the next books. And always, door is always open. Always happy to have you back, my love.
I would love to come back anytime you want me to. Anytime.
Absolutely, most certainly. We've still got so much to talk about. So, how do people get hold of the books? Now, I know you've got two ways. They're going to be on Amazon, that's what people can order. But if they go through the site and order from you, you will give them a signed copy.
Yes, if they go to bobdenver.com, that's easy to remember. There, those orders come directly to me, and so I can autograph them before I send them out.
Right.
The Amazon orders, believe me, I understand, being a Prime person and loving the 2-day delivery.
Yes.
I get it. And so I don't fault anybody for that, but I do not see those orders, so I can't sign those. So if the autograph doesn't matter, go straight to Amazon. And if you'd like something autographed, then come to bobdenver.com.
Excellent. See all the books, see all the story. We didn't even talk about the foundation. So you're going to have to come back when we're going to have to talk about that.
I don't know if you saw this in the bio, but I started a program, Always Free Honor Flight, that honors our veterans with free trips. So there's all kinds of things we can talk about. No, you're
back up there, because I actually do have our Veteran Stories channel. So you're going to have to come back and talk about that. So yeah, any excuse to have you back, but let's have you back on that one, right? So
that'd be great. I would love that. Definitely. I love our veterans so much. All of them know that too.
Yeah, so. And having done so many of the interviews with the veterans, they're there for each other like no other, and they know what they need, and they create the organizations that that help them, which then also in turn helps the communities and everybody else out there. So that's our next show, my darling, on the foundation and on that. We got it all figured out. All right, for now, bobdenver.com to get your signed book, or it's on Amazon, any one of the books. Just put in her name, Dreama, that's A, not E-R, Denver, and in Amazon under books, and you'll see all the books come up there. But if you want a signed copy, which is a wonderful thing to give as a gift to someone else as well, but to read the book, Gilligan's Dreams, and about the story, we always assume we see somebody must be rich and famous who's been on the air for so long, and we never know the story that really goes on behind the scenes there. And you've heard some of it today, and just how hard it really was. So please get the book and read more, and guarantee it will give you strength and courage in your own life, and give you a reflection in your own life, and just to realize it's never too late, and yes, we can, and yeah, it's okay to ask for help.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you so much, Dreama. Been an absolute delight. We're going to book that next show right now. And to everyone else out there, inspiration comes in so many packages. And yes, we're so much stronger than we think we are. Always be open and willing to allow whatever's meant to be and take that path. Until next time, bye for now. We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows. Please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows, and you will see the incredible lineup of genres and shows that we have for you. We are here to make a difference in your life. Thank you for listening.